I am Keithanthony Taylor. This is London Overcomers. Real pain. I'm very happy to have Joanna Cameron with me. And just to tell you a little bit about Joanna Cameron, Joanna's always enjoyed teaching, learning and travel. And she made an early choice in the 20s to be part of a student travel business operating student history tours on the East Coast of the USA. And she's from the UK and moved to America. And she wears many hats, and she's been in the travel industry, including operating the first tours to China after the Nixon Accord. Over 43 years with Cameron Tours, she's led student and adult tours all over the world and even traveled overland from Lhasa, Tibet to Kathmandu, Nepal, with amazing views of Mount Everest. In the last 20 years, she's focused on entertainment and hypnotherapy. As an entertainer, she was the Trance Lady. The Trance Lady performed, albeit briefly, on America and Britain's Got Talent, and performed for both corporate, high school and colleges as a comedy hypnotist. And she's helped people out of chronic pain, and she has the feeling that she's followed for the last 2 years, producing a documentary, Drain That Pain, and written a book of the same name. She teaches all over the world and also online from wherever she is. She teaches Drain That Pain and stage skills and the law of attraction. And she's putting her vibes out there now with more movie productions. And all that's enhancing the belief of the power of the mind to heal the body. And so, Joanna, let me ask you, what are you into now?
What am I into now? Well, thank you, Keith. I'm just delighted to be here with you. And it's a pleasure and a privilege. So I'm thinking that you there in London, I'm in Washington, D.C. So I know this is the way interviews have been of late, but it's going to be fun when we finally get together in London again.
It will be nice.
Yes.
Let's go back to the beginning. I know that when you left school many years ago, you went to med school, didn't you, at St. Andrews, and took a...
Well, I wanted to be in med school. I applied for med school, and this was many years ago. This was over 40 years ago. I'm 70 now, so this was 50 years ago. But at that time, even though I had the highest grades in pre-med, in other words, my biology, my math, my physics, and I got the honors medal that year. But even though I had all of that, I couldn't be admitted. And I went to see the dean, and he told me the reason. He said, "It's very simple, you're a woman. And we don't get as many useful years out of you. It's a means test in this college, in this country, going to college, and your parents make too much money, so you can't go to college here." And, you know, I've written to them of late. I wrote to the dean, and I said, you know, I wanted to be in med school. I had the best grades. I had the medal, and I wasn't allowed in. I never really expressed any, and I've never talked to you about this before. You know, it's not like I don't believe in hanging on to a story anyway. I believe in letting go of things. But, you know, I wrote to him and said, well, this happened. And I actually got a nice letter back, which I appreciated, that we made many, you know, cultural decisions. And he also said things that I liked. Consciousness is raising. You know, I'm all about that. Consciousness is raising. Women can now become doctors in England and get into medical schools. That, you know, that all changed probably 5 or 10 years after I was refused. But anyway, I went on. I'm really glad. I'd never liked linoleum floors. I don't think I would have done very well as a doctor. And I was supposed to be doing what I'm doing now. This is just the universe's way of you know, of producing it. I absolutely know that, you know, I read energy, and that it is possible for people to make enormous changes in probably the most exciting time ever energetically, because since the equinoxes All of that was that's Peggy Bonfield, my friend, coming in, and your friend too. But ever since the precession of the equinoxes in 2012, this was an event on the Mayan calendar. This was an event on the indigenous calendars that, you know, they didn't know where the universe was going after that, because we've always had a wobble. And what happened is it did shift. The magnetics has shifted and the energy is shifted. And we are now out in the healosphere in a totally different space since 2012. And what's happened is that the shift is coming, albeit gradually, because that's the way consciousness evolves, very slowly. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But changes are happening. I mean, Drain That Pain is a product of the new energy, the ability for people to have near-death experiences like you and recover. It's because of the intuitive energy that's coming in through the pineal gland with your intention, which is it's going to be the talking point of the world. I'm not sure why it isn't now, but this is what's happening. The world is becoming kinder. Our daughter is not going to go to war. British Londoners are not going to go to war anymore. We're not going to go out there and kill people because it doesn't suit our values. You know, the world world knows it can produce enough food. We can use solar technology. We can use magnetism. We can use all of these things are bringing technological changes which will increase coherence between people, discussions like this, and compassion. Because as you know, as people awaken, as they let go of the egotistical mind and they absorb themselves in the now of life, they open up their intuition. And this shift brings a whole set of new skills for the human.
Yeah.
We will be able to heal online in coherence sessions. Mm-hmm. You and I will lead coherence sessions where people just simply tune in and they get the vibe. Hi, Peggy.
Hi. Hi, y'all. Nice to be here. I'm proud of y'all both.
Oh, Peggy, it's so good to see you.
Thank you. I'm not trying to sit in the dark, but I think I ended up that way.
There you go.
And Joanna, I think I just need to light the touch paper. I don't need to say anything. And you said something that always rings with me, because intention is everything. That's what got me away from the situation that I was in. And I don't want to talk about that too much because this is about you. But my next question was going to be, and I don't think I need to ask it, when you're down, what gets you up? But your energy, I need to answer it for you. You've got so much energy, and it's obviously your energy that gets you up, isn't it?
Well, it's my connection to my source energy. You know, I absolutely love Abraham Hicks. I like the channelers. I know that this energy is the new dimension energy, and everybody can have it. But you really do need to set intention. You need to be able to talk to yourselves and say, we're downloading the new energy, because it's there. The new skills come with this shift in consciousness. We're all shifting, whether we like it or not. We're all going there. And some of us will get there first because we're old souls. You're an old soul, Keith, and so are you, Peggy. And that's why we're all here today. You do get that, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Peggy and I are soul sisters, Keith. I didn't know you knew that, but we are. So Peggy was in the movie Drain That Pain. She was there for the filming in Nashville, and we have been soul sisters for some years.
How is that movie Drain the Pain doing now?
Well, you know, I spent a fair amount of money producing it, but the production did come from this gland. I was absolutely in source energy when I did it. And I know that it will manifest when the right time for the universe is. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? You have to be in the right energy.
Yes.
Right now, we still have a lot of violent television. Have you turned on the television news? It's all fear. It's all about fear. It's all about generating fear. And it is coming. There's new programming coming. But I say to myself, I know my movie will be accepted at the right time. You know, I'm not going to worry about that, because these things can take time. But our time is coming. This is the time for light workers. This is our time. This is the shift.
Yes, you are a light worker now, but when you left school, you missed going to med school. What did you do when you left school?
When I left school, I got a research assistant job in cell biology, which is what I studied. I was in zoology and biology at St. Andrews University. I got a research assistant job in Utah at the University of Utah, and I was studying cell biology, and that was DNA. It was Watson and Crick, and I had an electron microscope, and I looked at the mitochondrial DNA of aphids, Drosophila melanogaster, and so it was DNA work, and I became a very good skier, and I finally got into the travel business. I went back to Britain during the time of my mother's death. I was 24. Then I went back to America, and I started a business, a travel business. It was 1975. And we had the bicentennial field trip, and it was a 7-day trip to take students from anywhere in the States to Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. You know, we followed the Freedom Trail, and the schools allowed it. So we could take the kids out of school time, not just spring break. And in 1976, 5 of us ran 10,000 kids to the East Coast. Pretty impressive, huh? With teachers. And I continued in that vein for 40 years. And I've only just closed the business, because it takes a while to close a business in the States. And but hasn't done any tours since I made a movie. But I have had 2 businesses for a while. I had that business because it was run by others. And then for the last 20 years, I've also been a therapist. I've studied NLP, and I was really drawn to comedy hypnosis. And so that's the reason I was on Britain's Got Talent and America's Got Talent.
And Alicia was nasty to you, wasn't she?
Well, you know, that's what you take that risk. You know, if you go on the show, you take that risk. And it doesn't make any difference to me. I'm proud of the fact you don't get on the shows unless you have talent. So if somebody's reading my bio right now, they know I have talent. Otherwise, I wouldn't be before those people. I wouldn't have made it to that show. No. So it's good for hypnosis. We have to stretch ourselves. You have to take risks at some times in your life. You know, you just follow it. Just follow the intuition. Is there risk involved? Is there a person there who wants to back it with you? You know, I have a backer for my movie. And so, you know, that's the way it is. And I continue to do that.
What was it, Joanna, that drew you to hypnosis? Can you remember the path?
Well, I always knew that I was connected. I always felt that I was a fairy in the woods. I always felt that. I always felt the energy of nature. And I always was imaginative. I always felt that connection. I felt that I had guides. So I was intrigued with trance, and I wanted to formally learn it. And my daughter at the time was having test anxiety issues. So I decided she needed to see a hypnotist. And then we had one of those wonderful synchronicities. We all flew to Utah, because I kept her home in Utah, and we were going skiing over the Christmas vacation. And it was that time when we had paper tickets. You know, your name was on it. So I got on the plane, and there was another Joanna Cameron in the seat that was my seat, right? So we started talking to each other, and finally they sorted it out. But we ended up sitting next to each other on the flight, and she was a hypnotist in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I took Chelsea, our daughter, to see her. And she did this wonderful technique when you went into the brain and you went into different rooms. And there was a room for English and a math room. And science, and all the doors were swinging open, and all, you know, and the metaphor was wonderful. You know, you realize that the information is being communicated. And, you know, she didn't have any test anxiety after all of that. So after that, I just studied NLP with Tad James. I studied with many different people and opened a business and did hypnotherapy, and was very quickly doing high school shows. So I was doing both comedy and hypnotherapy at the same time. But I have clients that date back 20 years, which has been really good for me over the pandemic, because I've been able to see people. You know, I've been able to actually use my talents. What
are the chances that you would meet somebody on an airplane with the same name in your seat?
Well, that's the synchronicity. That for me is an absolute knowing that this was my path. So when the intuition came, I want to do that. I want to learn that. I want to be on the stage. When that came to me, and the synchronicities with it, because that is multidimensional. That is a sign, because it's not linear. The new energy is not linear. It's multidimensional. It's like that's the language of spirit, and that's the language of the quantum part of our DNA. In other words, it's not the senses. It's more about the feeling and the vibration, and it's the way spirit communicates. Because if you've had a very good meditation, then all of a sudden you get an idea. Yeah, I want to be on Keith's show. Absolutely. Yes. And now Peggy is here. It's just like, wow. I mean, if this isn't a synchronicity. I was just thinking, Peggy, we haven't had a one-on-one chat on the phone for a while, and then you appear here. So there you are. There's another synchronicity.
Always.
So when you begin to see lots of synchronicities in life, you know you're in what I call the receiving mode. In other words, you do not have any resistance to this multidimensional energy, which is entering through your pineal gland, and it's affecting you through your innate, which means your innate system absolutely knows. It knows your history. It knows all of the lives you've had. It's the part of you that reacts to homeopathy. You know, it's the part that we use when we muscle test, but it's innate. You know those things. And so it's not what I call synaptic, which is, the synapse is what I studied as a biologist. In other words, the cells communicated, there was a synapse, there was information that went from the nerve, the synaptic, the receptor cells, and that was the mechanism of the fight and flight mechanism. And that's really what the body develops for our habits. But we have this incredible thing called intuition, incredible thing. And when people really tap into that, you've had your own near-death experience, Keith. So yes, you can attest to this, is that something happens. It is such, Hicks would say, it's such a number one moment. You want to live. There is so much desire pushing that the body just suddenly heals everything. It's like a person who drops off a building and suddenly says, I want to live, and all of a sudden they walk away from it. Or people, there are so many near-death experiences happening all the time. And that happens through the innate, that happens through desire and intention. So all the cells get together and say, life, you know, you've turned the corner. And that happens.
You're giving me chills when I think about what I went through.
Well, you had a near-death experience.
Exactly how it was. And I tell you a quick story.
Yeah, tell me.
I went through that near-death experience, and then many years later, because I came through paralysis, many years later, I met somebody in a hospital ward where I worked doing hospital radio, and he was laying in the bed. He was paralyzed completely except for his thumb, and he was holding a switch so he could call the nurse, and he could only move his thumb. And he was saying to me, what hope have I got, Keith? I can only move my thumb. And he'd been paralyzed that day by some brain condition that he'd been diagnosed with. He couldn't move. And I said to him, And I felt like I'd been destined to be with him through my experience. He could only move his thumb. And I can't remember his name, but this was a Wednesday evening. And I said to him, don't listen to the doctors. And I thought, I'm going out on a limb here because I might be promising him something I can't give. But I went out on a limb and I said, don't listen to the doctors. I said, look at me. They said the same to me. They said, you'll always be paralyzed, Keith. And I said, look at me. They said that to me in 1978. They said, you'll always be paralyzed, but look at me now. And then I spun on my heels, did a little dance for him. And I said, don't give up hope. I said, you've got a responsibility now to write the story of how you overcame this. And then he started beaming, he's smiling. And he said, will you be coming back tomorrow, Keith? I said, why? And he said, well, you've given me hope. And he was smiling, this broad smile, and he was so down in the dumps when I got there. And I said, well, I'll make a special trip back to see you tomorrow. And I went back the next day and his bed was empty. And he was standing at the end of the wall with doctors standing around him. And he pointed at me and he said, there he is, there's Keith, he did it. And I put my hands, I did nothing, I said, you did all of this. And you won't believe it, I was called into the office and given a dressing down for giving patients false hope. Because he wasn't the only person I'd done that to in that hospital. Because I was going into that ward and I was, every time I went through the doors of the ward, because I had a lot of, in those days, I had a lot of baggage that I was carrying, and I was aware of this. So when I went through the doors of the ward, I gave myself a shakedown from the head down to get rid of all my baggage and put a big smile on my face before I walked through those doors, because I knew that I had to lift those patients up because some of them had some very serious conditions and they didn't need my baggage. So I went through to make a change for those patients because some of them were really sick. You know, some of them had phantom limb pain and all kinds of things.
Oh gosh, yes.
And I went in to stop that. And I know that you do the same when you do drain that pain, don't you?
Well, when you think about phantom limb pain, think about it. How can you have pain in a limb? How can you have pain in a tooth when the tooth has been removed? How
Yes.
could you have pain in a leg?
Yes.
When there is no nerve, there is no,
Yes.
there's nothing there anymore. Think about it. So that's why Drain That Pain works, because you're moving the energy. It was your energy, Keith, when you went into the ward, you went through those doors, you let go of the baggage. And it was this incredible positive energy that came from your spirit and from your knowing that lifted those other people.
Yes.
And really, it's the same thing that happens with Drain That Pain.
Yes.
I go in knowing that I believe that person can let go of pain, because I've seen hundreds of people let go of pain. I go in with that knowing. If that person will set that intention with me, then poof. And you saw it, Peggy. You were at the filming. You saw it. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I thanked him. I thanked him for saving me, because when I was on my hospital bed in 1978, I knew I had to get better, because I knew I had a mission to go and help people. It wasn't about me. It was about helping other people. I knew I had to get off that bed. There was this knowing in me, this force, this feeling that I had to get off that bed. I just had.
But that was the desire. You see, that is the desire, that knowing that you have a purpose, that knowing, that feeling. And it is that causes it then to manifest immediately. It's like instant manifestation, because it is the combination of desire and the knowing, the belief, I can do this. Yes.
And I know that I have to do this podcast and speak with you, because I know that people will listen to this and they will be moved by what you're saying and what I'm saying, because they listen to this show. And that's why I've named this podcast London Overcomers Real Pain, because I know there are people who are listening who are in real pain. And there are those people on the course that I'm taking who have looked at my title and they said, no, Keith, that's not the right title. But I've kept the title anyway.
Because, you know, physical pain physical pain, chronic physical pain that keeps repeating for no reason at all. It is stuck energy within the body. That's it.
Yes.
Stuck energy. And our abilities to help people by our example, by loving intention, which is the most powerful force in the world, the use of intention, the use of hypnagogic skills, and being able to get people into a trance, because
Yes.
it helps to switch off. It helps to switch off the barrage of it. It helps to empty out your story. It helps to empty out your history. Everybody can do that. When they do that, they open up their pineal gland.
Yes.
They go into a trance. They get into delta and then theta trance in daydreams. And it's been shown with the Olympics coming up. They've been, you know, I don't know if you've talked about Charlie and his lucid dreaming. Remember
Charlie
this?
Morley.
Yeah, Charlie Morley. And
I've interviewed Charlie.
yeah, so it's, you know, as he makes the point that people in those stages of brain can pick up information, which is amazing. When the delta and theta waves, they can learn more, they can let go of trauma, they can let go of post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's why I've gone on to use Drain That Pain for everything. Yes. I get acceptance, and then we make an energy shift with the client, and we allow it to go away. And of course, we point the client towards what they really want, and really turn up the level of desire for that.
Yes.
The feeling, because you manifest what you feel more than anything. You wanted, you said, you knew what your purpose was, and you wanted to help other people get out of pain. And you know what? At that moment, you had a near-death experience. Think about it. It is that level of desire and belief that allows it to happen. It's manifestation. Yes. It's like all your body just suddenly says, and you have 300 trillion cells, not to mention 1 billion neurons in your brain. All of that work together to make that happen.
Yes.
It's just amazing. That's energy.
On my Facebook page, there's a picture of me with a friend of mine who's a black lady, and I'm doing an arm drop with her. I'm tapping her wrist to make her arm drop, to put her in trance. And when I did that, a friend of mine and I was on Skype, but a friend of mine took that picture, and she was in Alaska, and you might know her. I know she's in Alaska, and she took that picture while I was hypnotizing my friend. And she'd just been to the dentist, and she'd had a root canal done, and she was in agony, and she had tears pouring down her face because she was in so much pain. But I hypnotized her very quickly, and she was in agony. But then she started laughing with the tears still pouring down her face, and she was laughing because she couldn't understand where the pain went, because it went. And yes, I've always kept that picture on my Facebook page.
It's the greatest feeling in the world to help somebody get out of really bad chronic pain. I mean, the greatest feeling.
Yes, and it's a marvelous thing. And I shouldn't be. I'll get told off by my colleagues if they watch this, because we're talking about me now instead of you.
Well, you have a very interesting story. I'm very happy to hear about you, Keith.
Yes.
I learn a great deal from you, and so will the audience.
But this is not about me. We need to talk more about you, Joanna. You've been doing stage hypnosis, and I've seen some of it, and very good it is too. But you're now you're writing a lot of books now, aren't you? You're writing
I am,
books.
And I don't know, I was just inspired to do it, and it came from the right place. Because when I get one of these intuitions, I always say, well, did I meditate? Did this come from that space? And I always know if it's come from the right space. And I just decided that I wanted to write my views on spirituality. And because also, this is so exciting, the shift that is happening, the energy that changes that have happened since 2012, and it's going to continue for another 26 years. And it's a very exciting time, certainly if you're an energy worker like we all are. Anyone who uses hypnosis is using energy. It's the same thing. Everything is energy. The desk I'm sitting at is energy. Everything is. Our animals are energy, are our creation. There are guides. There are everything. But everything is energy. And when you really understand that, and you say, well, I have to become aligned inside, that when I I think learning to meditate was the biggest shift for me. If I meditate 20, 30 minutes every morning, I don't get out of bed until I'm so alive and I feel so good. And I know that I've connected my heart to my brain. And I know that I've done those things. And I know that I feel the love in my heart, because we all have that. We are spiritual beings. You know, we happen to be here on earth, and at times it's just really inconvenient for spiritual beings. So, you know, when you really get in contact with that and get out of your box of beliefs and realize that you can create anything you want, and that your thought energy actually does become the events, the circumstances, the legacy of your life. When you really get that what you think is what you get, it really affects you. You say, well, I have to think better. And the way you think better is to feel better.
Yes.
When you feel well, then you start imagining. I start imagining, oh, I want to write a book about that. I want to write a book about lucid dreaming. I wrote a book on lucid dreaming. I've written a book on a lot of aspects, intuition, meditation, you know, self-hypnosis. So I've written 10 books, 11 now since February. And I have a good friend who's a soul sister who edits them. And I have somebody on Fiverr who puts them into Kindle format for me very cheaply. And so it's a workable project for me to write books, because it's very expensive to get, you know what I mean, editor and formatting and all of that. So Amazon, Amazon is right here. So I'm thinking, yes, I'm going to add the audio and do audiobooks. All of that will be released. So yeah, I plan on writing lots of books, and everything happens slowly from reviews, but it does happen. It does continue to happen. People continue to buy my books, and they are experiential. In other words, I'm going to say, this is how you meditate and go inside. You breathe in and you breathe out, and you breathe in again, and now float. And breathe out. Now empty out all your thoughts, empty out your history, empty out your story. Imagine a container and it's filled with water and there's a tap at the bottom. And you open up the tap and you empty that all out. And now just feel what's left. And you'll find it feels like an alert stillness. And you realize in this state, there is no judgment. The ego mind has disappeared. You are your true self. And now open up your heart doors and feel the love of your source energy. Feel that. And feel that love now go to your brain and into your intuition. And open up that gland. And hear the sound of my voice as you listen through your pineal. Hear that. Ask for what you want. Say, dear spirit, dear higher self, dear soul, tell me what I need to know. And then your soul will begin to find the synchronicities. The Peggies of this world will arrive. The Keiths will arrive. Things will happen easily, effortlessly. And you never need ask how. Why is important? Because it's your purpose. That's my purpose. My purpose is to assist people to get out of pain, physical, mental, anxiety, panic attacks, phobias. I'm writing a book on phobias right now. And so my job is to help people to understand that they can do this. They can align themselves inside. There's no necessity to live with your thoughts, because the ego mind becomes involved, and the ego wants to judge you, wants to compare you to others, wants to introduce dramas in your life and have you watch mad television and all that. So as your ego goes away, you find you live more successfully in the moment, and the moment expands accordingly. So my message is very simply in these books, I give people exercises. You know, it's as simple as do this with your hands, you know, and your fingers come together and all of that. I do that. but I do it in the written word, and now it will be the spoken word, but it's brief. Breathe, float, let it go now as I count from 0, blah, blah. When I say blink, 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 all those little tricks that I did on the stage, I bring now into my books.
Breathing is a very good thing to do, because I always teach breathing, because if you breathe through your nose, in through your nose and out through your nose, you can get 15 to 20% more oxygen absorption into your blood. And that triggers the vagus nerve, which forces your body to relax.
That's right. It's this stretching exercise, which is so good as you stretch back here. You do that with your breathing, it really opens up the vagal nerve. But it's also breath is the spirit. Breath, the spirit, your soul enters your body with the first breath, and it leaves with your last. So the spirit energetically and spiritually is that source. You breathe it in, give me the information, give my cells the information that my cells are in tune, that they have raised my immunity, that they work together, that
yes,
they know who the boss is, that I am well, that all the oxygen from my lungs is going there. And to give these suggestions and affirmation is more important now in this new energy than ever before. I know that.
I do too.
Yeah.
It was the breathing that cured me all those
There you are.
43 years ago. Breathing was the only thing I could do. And it helped the pain an awful lot.
It was the God force.
Yes.
95% of people, they think, believe like we do, that the God is within, that there is a soul, that you reincarnate. This is a belief that is worthwhile, that is worldwide. And the meditation has been very clearly shown scientifically that when it's called the 1% effect, you only have to have 1%. 900 people would meditate in Lebanon in 1980s. They did this study, and when 1% of that population meditated, it's like 1 million people would feel well. And this would be reduced. The kinds of things that happen in wars, the sorts of crimes that happen, all of those would be reduced when people meditate. So when people meditate, it affects the collective unconscious. Now, isn't that powerful? So as consciousness rises, as we see it here in the States, as we see equality, as we see a president who is nuts, as we see empathy and kindness towards others being, it's happening. And it is a brave new world, I believe. A compassionate new world would be the word I would say, a kind new world.
Joanna, you mentioned earlier on 26 years to come. How do you know it's 26 years?
Well, when you look at the wobble, it's because the Earth is spinning like this and it's slightly off on its course. So it wobbles for a certain amount of time. And then because of the galactic forces, it goes back again. But it's a wobble, meaning we are slightly in a different galaxy. We are now spinning out in an area we don't normally cover. Because the Earth has its own magnetic grid. So this is about the intersection also of grids. The Earth has a crystalline grid, and then there's a magnetic grid of the Earth. But it has been on a wobble. That's why north has changed. It's gradually moved over the years. They've had to change the signs on a few airports too because of runways and things, but it's just gradually moved. And when they looked at the stars, the indigenous, they could see, that this happens every so many years, and they picked this date 2012 on the Mayan calendar, on many calendars, that there was no calendar off that. They said because there's no prophecy about what would happen. It was just that on that date, things would change. There may not be an Earth. What there was a shift in consciousness. And it's going to continue.
Yes, I see.
The earth has a wobble.
You've obviously been studying this stuff.
Well, I study some, but I feel most of the time I feel things. I think absolutely people want a scientific background. And I did science for many years. And you know what? I've learned so much more in the last 10 when it's been this kind of an education. In other words, I'd rather learn how to put someone in a trance. I'd rather learn how to help somebody. I'd rather learn a technique. I'd rather learn a skill that would help somebody else than to learn a bunch of facts. My ebooks are not about facts. They are more about, because if you're looking at spirituality, it's not really the how, it's the why. We don't know how it's going to happen. Nobody does, but we can predict. And I do believe in channeling. And you know, it's a funny thing, but the channels that are out there, they're all saying the same thing, which is very powerful, isn't it? They're all saying the same thing.
Yes.
When you look at the powerful people, Eckhart Tolle, when you look at Cryon, when you look at Abraham Hicks, when you look at, you know, all of these people, they're all saying the same thing. They're coming from the same story. They're coming from a place, they are other dimensional, they are multidimensional, and they channel from that space. But it's all about, when you let go of the ego, then you allow love to come in, and that will bring a better earth. I mean, the Beatles had it right, love, love, love.
It's interesting you mentioned channeling, because one of my clients who's I say a client, she's a good friend of mine now, and she's not really a client because, poor thing, she hasn't got any money and she's never paid me anything, but I've been very happy to help her. She channels a famous saint, Saint Maria Goretti, and I was never sure whether she was actually channeling the saint or whether it was just part of her mind, until one day when I was chatting with Saint Maria Goretti through my friend, said that she would make some changes in my flat, and she said she was going to move something or change something, and I have an electric kettle here that was, the thermostat was burnt out, and I was meaning to order a new thermostat, which would have cost me £1, and it was burned out. I mean, burnt.
Right.
And so, which meant I had to hold the button down to make it boil. And I went into the kitchen to boil the kettle, and I pressed the button down, and it stayed down. And I was a bit shocked by that. And it's been perfect ever since. And that thermostat was burned out. I'd had it apart and looked at it, and it was burned, you know. But ever since then, it's been working perfectly. So Maria Goretti is genuine. And she had told me that she'd been watching over me because of some problems I've been having. So full marks to Saint Maria Goretti.
Well, yeah, and I bet her message to the world was incredibly loving and positive.
Oh, she is.
Yes.
She's an Italian saint who was
Yes.
11 years old when she was murdered by one of the locals who wanted to have his evil way with her, and I'm sure the mafia might not be happy to know that I've been talking with her directly.
Well,
but it's an amazing thing, because you wonder, are you really talking with someone who's generally being channeled, or because it could be just the person you're talking to.
I think the channeler is always receptive, and I don't think generally with the channels I listen to, all of those relationships have taken a while to develop.
Yes.
And you know, they've taken intention too for a fifth dimension spirit to work with a third dimensional, and that person has to be able to comprehend the downloads they get and put it into language so that others can hear it. When you think about it, that's probably only very small segment of the population. And But we have a lot of channelers now, but their message is the same, that, you know, there is a shift in consciousness.
Yes.
That is a channeled message that is coming.
The lovely thing about her, though, was that she was murdered in terrible circumstances, and she helped my friend because I asked her to do some healing for my friend, because my friend was having some problems with cancer, and my friend's cancer was healed when I asked her to do that. And so I said, because I knew the circumstances in which she died, I asked if there was anything I could do for her. And she said yes. She said, she told me, now this is a famous saint. So I thought, well, she's a child and she died in traumatic circumstances. So I treated her like she was just a child. And she said that I could help her because she was traumatized still. And she died in about 1908, I think it was, or something like that. And she was traumatized because she was feeling guilty over the fact that she had been murdered, and she felt that she was the guilty party because she thought that it was her fault in some way, that he'd been drawn to her because he wanted to rape her, and so he stabbed her to death because she resisted him. So I counseled her over that and let her know that it wasn't her fault. And she'd been trapped on Earth all these years. And so I counseled her and, in effect, released her spirit from Earth so she was able to traverse more freely. And I'm thinking, this is not really, this is fantastic stuff because I'm a therapist.
You released her karma. She doesn't have to keep coming back.
Yes.
And that's the thing in this new energy, and I've written a book about it. It's called Release Karma. It's in my spirituality series, that you can do this. I do it as an exercise. Okay, we're going to release karma now, and then it's in the book.
But
and yes, you breathe and you float and you count,
yes,
empty out your thoughts. But you can do this. People do it.
but she still comes back because she
Yeah.
wants to help people on Earth.
Well, that's right. But there are tools now for people to let go of things in the past.
Yes.
And the most important thing is the intention. That's what we're doing with phobias too. I'm doing this in this present book. It's just going back there. It's the fast phobia model, right? Play it backwards, play it forwards. It's different submodalities. We're changing the meaning of that, of what is happening in the brain. You change the meaning of it, and then the phobia is gone with intention. And the energy drains. It's just that simple.
It was a bit different for me though to be working with somebody in spirit because I had not done that before.
Well, I think you do it very well. I don't think yes, but I find that I meet now very interesting people, and I don't think I would meet those unless I had put myself out there in that way.
Yes.
I mean, I've developed new friends with my books, and I would like to write books on many things. We have a diabetic cat now, and I'm going to write a book on that. These are very short books, you know, they're 15 pages. It's just that I'm a big thinker. I like big picture thinking, and most people in the information age that we're in, we can get most information we need just by typing it in on Google or other search engines, right? But it's the wisdom, it's the emotion, it's how you do it, it's the feeling. How do you change that feeling to another? Why not write a book about it? Why not write a book and pretend the person has a phobia, they're sitting with you, and you go through it and you write it down. And you help that person and say, you read this slowly, you know, get into your head. Let me help you do that now. We're going to float back. We're going to make a movie of that event. You've got 5 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to play it forwards in black and white. We're going to play it backwards in color, faster, faster, ding, 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 until you cannot feel it anymore. And you know what? It works. I did it at Hypnothoughts Live with 3 people on stage, 3 volunteers I used, and they all did it. and they all let go of the phobias. I have released phobias in my comedy shows. I once went, I have to tell you the story, but I went to the Friends of the Norfolk Aquarium, and they had an aquarium there, but they had an IMAX, and they were having a party for all of these people who donated to the aquarium. So I was to provide the comedy, and I came up with a fishy skit. I thought, it's a fishy group, we'll have a fishy skit. I look out at the audience, I mean, the people I've got on the stage, and one of them, she's bright red and she's hyperventilating and sweating, and she is having a full-on panic attack. Mm-hmm. She had a fish phobia, and for some reason, she was in an IMAX theater. She was a Friends of the Aquarium, but she had a fish phobia. Talk about an interesting combination. Anyway, I said, well, I'm going to release this. Of course, the audience loved it. So I told, I had a person helping with me at the back, and I said, listen, there's a restaurant right next door. I want you to bring in a whole fish on a platter dead. Why? Because I was going to release the phobia, but then you have to test it. You have to bring the fish and say, hey, how do you feel? And the person laughs because the phobia is gone. And that's what happened. I don't remember what happened in the rest of the show, but I do remember that I released that fish phobia on stage.
Well done.
Yeah, so there you are. But phobias are that way. They can be released really quickly. I've had a couple myself when I was a child, and I look back on it and I go, anyone who's had a phobia and then they're over it, it's like, wow. I mean, I was really scared. I was really scared of tomato pips. I love tomatoes. I wrote a book, Forget Diets, Plant Tomatoes. You know, I love tomatoes, but I had a phobia as a child just about the pips. They would make me really scared. So you just don't know what's going to upset people. But it's so easy to get rid of it. It's so easy to get rid of it.
Yes, I had a phobia of needles, and I released it myself. I just started saying to myself, I'm looking forward to my next needle, and laughing about it.
Yes, lovely.
And it went.
Yeah.
And I also learned the mechanism of fainting. It was because your blood pressure goes down.
Yeah,
so I just started saying to myself, my blood pressure's going up.
Yeah.
And everything was okay.
Yeah.
And I started making jokes with the phlebotomist. I said to her, I used to be a fainter. How daft is that? And I said to the phlebotomist, do you ever get any screamers in here? And she said, sometimes. I said, well, this is your lucky day because I'm a screamer. And she went white. And now I don't even feel the needle go in. I enjoy watching the needle go in. I used to look the other way, but now I enjoy watching the needle go in, because when I watch the needle go in, I say no pain. And I've even done surgery on myself to save my leg when it had gangrene. And I've had 3 surgical procedures done without anesthetic, because I used to hate hospitals. And now I think it's marvelous that I can do these things.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Considering how fearful I used to be of just needles.
Yeah.
But it was fun. The first time I went into hospital to have a surgical procedure done without anesthetic, because I decided I was going to do that, I was looking at those doors as I walked into the theater, and I thought, this is D-Day. Because I thought, I hope this works out okay, because if it doesn't, I'm in trouble. Because I knew I was going to have no anesthetic. And as I walked through the doors, they were saying, are you sure, Mr. Taylor, this is going to hurt a lot? Let us give you an anesthetic. I said, no, I'm going to be okay. But I was only going in as an experiment, because I thought, I wonder if this is really going to work.
Amazing. Good for you.
Okay, because I made the decision that it was going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because the secret is that the stories we tell ourselves, and if we tell ourselves it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay.
That's exactly right. And it's the belief. It is the belief. When people just can realize they're sitting in a box of beliefs, and if you can just get outside of them, just get outside of a limiting box of beliefs, you're a spiritual being. You can create anything you want.
Yes.
The world is your oyster.
Yes. And
put here to enjoy it.
When I was in 2008, I'm sorry, we're talking about me again. I'm going to get told off by my colleagues for doing this.
Well, you tell them that we really enjoyed it, and Peggy's smiling too, so that's a nod from her. And you know, that's the point.
Yes.
We all learn from each other, and this is a conversation, and it's really good to hear stories, Keith.
In 2008, I had to go to the stage at the Orleans in Las Vegas. And in those days, I was very introverted. I'd never spoken to an audience, and I'd been invited to go over to talk to an audience. There was 1,000 people there, and I'm thinking, what on earth am I doing here? How did I get here? But I turned to face the audience, and they'd all invited me there and wanted me to be there. And I just looked at the audience and I said to myself, these people all love me. They've invited me to be here, and they all like me, and it's all going to be okay. And they're all going to give me a standing ovation at the end. And at the end, they gave me a standing ovation because they love me.
There you are.
Since then, I've been hooked on talking to people.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I'm so glad we're opening up here, and you know, events are happening. I'm showing Drain That Pain at a holistic festival in Manlapan, New Jersey, just outside New York in September. This was supposed to happen last year, but of course it was all canceled with the pandemic. But it's going to be rather thrilling to show this to a holistic audience. New York holistic audience will be really fun.
Joanna, would you
Yes.
like to give us any links to your resources where our audience can find
Well,
you?
I think I gave them to you, but if you go to my website, which is www.joannacameron.com, it also opens from drainthatpain.com, and you can see my about there, my history. You can read about Drain That Pain, and you can read about the books that I am writing right now. I also have a novel that I wrote with Jim Ward, who died in January of this year. I think you know that, Peggy, that Jim died.
Yeah.
And we were writing a novel together, which was something totally different. So I'm going to publish that. His kids are not being acting very well, but I know he'd want me to publish it. So one way or another, I'm going to publish it. So I have a whole bunch of things happening, yes. And I'm working now on adding audio to my books that I release. In other words, there'll be an exercise and we breathe and float and get rid of something, or we experience the meditation state, which I call empty out your story, empty out your thoughts. And it's so good that people realize that they can get away from anxiety. They just have to intend just to, in the moment, to say, I'm going to focus on something else, whether it's bird song, whether it's your voice, or whatever it is, and you can switch it off. So I'm going to add audio to my books that I've written, and I'm looking forward to that. And yes, I'm interested in making other documentaries, and I put in a couple of bids to do that. And I continue to, with my agent, look for opportunities for Drain That Pain. And I believe one way or another, it will be released. But the universe will decide when the right person is going to maybe watch this podcast and say, yeah, we want to see that in England. Yeah, sure enough, you know, then absolutely we'll talk.
And can we find you on Amazon?
I'm sorry?
Can we find you on Amazon by typing?
You can find me on Amazon. You can type in Joanna Cameron self-hypnosis and it'll come up, or Joanna Cameron on the Author Central page, Joanna Cameron, and I will come up. There's 13 books.
13, goodness.
Yeah. I wrote Forget Diets, Plant Tomatoes. I wrote a book many years ago with Deepak Chopra and all these other people. And so Stepping Stones to Success. Then I wrote Forget Diets. And then I wrote Drain That Pain. And then I wrote all of these mini ebooks this year. These are tiny books, but they're perfect for me. I get to publish every week. It's a great feeling. I'm publishing, yay. So I like the feedback, and I'm meeting new people, and that's what I think I need right now.
Are you going to do any more stage shows?
I have nothing in the works. You know, I did that for 20 years, and I'm not saying I won't do it again, but and I found myself performing when I was at Hypnobiz. I found myself performing there on their stage show, and but the opportunities will come, possibly even from this podcast, Keith. That's the way I like to look at it. Yes, I'm available. Want a stage show? Go see the Trance Lady on YouTube and see why my shows get views every single day. So there are millions of views. Subscribe. I have playlists on meditations. I have playlists on all different kinds of therapies, how to empty out anxiety, therapies to help you sleep. And they're all organized in my YouTube channel called The Trance Lady. So I'm Joanna Cameron, also known as The Trance Lady. And but that's my name on YouTube, is The Trance Lady. So there are lots of shows and lots of videos on many different things. I have over 200 videos that I've made over 20 years. So yes. About a variety of different things. But many of them are comedy hypnosis, the skits that I ran. And so, yeah, it's been great, but it still continues, you know. I'd like to be doing this in my 90s. I'm now 70. I'd like to be doing this in my 90s. And I think the way you keep your brain is to keep it active. So writing books is a very good way to keep it active. Speaking, seeing clients, absolutely. And I thank you, Keith, for the opportunity of being here. It's a privilege to be with you, and your stories are wonderful. We love to hear them. And Peggy, how wonderful to see you. It's just a fabulous synchronicity. It's like, wow.
Yeah, we kind of brainstormed during that pain.
Yes, we did.
And even on the name. Woo! And
Yes.
and I'm so proud of both of you, because what we're doing right now, and I'm 5D too, it has been one heck of a year for all of us, I think, and I'm really happy to be here with y'all. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you joined us, Peggy. You're a hypnotist as well, are you, Peggy?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Where are you based, Peggy? I'm guessing you're in America?
Birmingham, Alabama, USA.
Okay, wonderful.
And we've met on the road, haven't we, Peggy? We've met. What was the name of that restaurant we met at? I'm just trying to remember the name of it. Remember it?
Yeah, it was just good Southern barbecue.
We had Southern barbecue.
Sounds
and
wonderful.
we healed our waitress.
And we healed the waitress, yeah. It was so much fun. So I feel real grateful to be here, and look forward to getting the links so we can see this on YouTube and
iTunes
and all the other media you'll put it on.
It'll be on Anchor as well, and Spotify and several other podcast networks.
I think I can upload it too, Keith, and we don't get into trouble as long as it's not the same size file. You know what I mean? It cannot be the same length file. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But if you don't want me to upload it, I won't. But
if you want to upload it anywhere, I don't think there'll be any problem with that.
It's no problem with YouTube as long as they don't go, oh, they've both got the same video. It's 41.35 minutes, right? I mean, that's what YouTube does.
I'll be putting up on YouTube.
Super. Well, I will share it on the Trance Lady.
Okay.
Or share a portion of it, you know, yes. But it's been really great, and thank you.
But thank you very much, Joanna Cameron, Trance Lady. It's been fabulous having you on London Overcomers Real Pain, and I'm sure they'll probably interview you again in the future, or maybe you'll interview me.
I think I should interview you. I think this that would be good, and then we can reverse the tables here. I mean, we're both on Zoom.
Yes.
Yes. I've used Zoom quite a lot over the last 2 years. I think it's wonderful myself.
But
it's really good.
thank you very much, Joanna. I've been Keithanthony Taylor. This has been London Overcomers Real Pain. If anybody wants to book me, you can find me on my website, which is hypnosensei.co.uk, or you can telephone me on my London number, which is 0208 664 9595. So thank you again, Joanna Cameron and Peggy Bonfield, for joining us. And
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
bye-bye
Bye. Kisses to all. Thank you.
for now.